The conference room at Morrison Tech Solutions had that new money smell. Leather chairs, glass walls, and my sister Victoria's ego inflated to match the $16 million Series B valuation she'd been bragging about for 3 months. I sat in the back corner, exactly where I'd positioned myself for the past 4 years of these quarterly board meetings, notepad in hand, observing. "Before we begin," Victoria announced, standing at the head of the table in her power suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, "I want to address the elephant in the room. We're discussing serious expansion opportunities today. Multi-million-dollar decisions. This isn't." She paused, her eyes landing on me with that particular blend of pity and condescension I'd grown accustomed to. "This isn't for everyone to understand." Our father, Richard Morrison, sat 2 seats away from Victoria, nodding approvingly. He'd always been her biggest cheerleader, ever since she'd pitched the initial concept for Morrison Tech during a family dinner 6 years ago. "Your sister's right, Maya. These board meetings can get pretty technical. Maybe you'd be more comfortable waiting in the lobby? We can catch you up later." I smiled politely, the same smile I'd perfected over years of family gatherings where my accomplishments were footnotes and Victoria's were headlines. "I'm fine here, Dad. I'd like to observe." "Observe?" Victoria laughed, and several of the board members, most of whom I'd personally vetted through my investment firm before allowing their participation, joined in. "That's sweet. But seriously, we're about to discuss our Series C funding round. We're talking about valuations in excess of $200 million. The financial complexity alone." "I understand," I said quietly, opening my notepad. "Please continue." My brother-in-law, Derek, who'd married Victoria 3 years ago and immediately positioned himself as the company's chief operating officer despite having exactly 0 operational experience, leaned forward. "Maya, no offense, but do you even know what a Series C funding round is?" "I have a general idea," I replied. "A general idea." Derek exchanged glances with Victoria. "This is exactly what we were worried about. Victoria, maybe we should implement that board observer policy we discussed? Limit attendance to people who actually contribute financially." The words hung in the air like a challenge. I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket, probably my investment firm's daily update, but I ignored it. Victoria tapped her pen against the table. "Derek has a point. Maya, I love you, you're my sister, but let's be honest about your financial situation. You work at that little nonprofit, you live in that modest apartment in the suburbs, you drive a 7-year-old Honda. There's no shame in that, but this." She gestured around the room. "This is a different world. A world that requires serious capital, serious understanding, serious commitment." "I'm committed," I said. "Committed how?" Dad interjected. "Maya, sweetheart, you make what, $45,000 a year at that charity? Victoria's company is valued at $16 million and about to enter negotiations that could push it past $200 million. These are numbers you can't even conceptualize." The other board members had gone quiet now, watching this family drama unfold with the uncomfortable fascination of people who knew they should intervene but were too curious to stop it. "I conceptualize them fine," I said softly. "Really?" Victoria leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "Pop quiz. What's our current burn rate?" $860,000 per month, I answered. "Down from $1.2 million last quarter after you optimized the cloud infrastructure costs." Victoria's eyebrows rose slightly. "Lucky guess. What about our customer acquisition cost?" $142 per enterprise client, which gives you a customer lifetime value ratio of approximately 8 to 1, above industry standard. The room had gone completely silent now. "How do you know that?" Derek demanded. "I read the quarterly reports," I said. "They're in the shared drive." "The shared drive that's password protected," Victoria said slowly. "I'm an observer at board meetings," I pointed out. "I assumed I'd have access to basic financial documents." Dad cleared his throat. "Maya, the point remains. You're here as a courtesy because you're family. But Victoria is right. We're about to discuss matters that require actual investment capability. The Series C round we're planning needs anchor investors who can commit tens of millions of dollars. That's not your world." "What is my world, Dad?" I asked, genuine curiosity in my voice. "You help people," he said, not unkindly. "You work with homeless shelters and food banks. It's admirable, it really is. But it's not this. Victoria built this company from nothing. She secured the funding, brought in the talent, created the technology. She's going to be $100 millionaire before she's 40. You're doing important work in your own way. The condescension was so thick I could have cut it with a knife, but I'd expected nothing less. This was the Morrison family dynamic in perfect miniature. Victoria the golden child, Dad the proud enabler, Derek the opportunistic addition, and me, the afterthought who was tolerated at major events as long as I didn't ask too many questions or take up too much space. I understand, I said, closing my notepad. So, this Series C round. How much are you looking to raise? Victoria sighed dramatically. $80 to $100 million. We have preliminary interest from Sequoia and Andreessen Horowitz, and we're in talks with 3 other top-tier venture capital firms. The lead investor will likely need to commit $30 to $40 million minimum. Does that satisfy your curiosity? It does, I said. And you're confident you'll close the round? Absolutely. Victoria's confidence was unshakable. We have a revolutionary product, a proven business model, and year-over-year revenue growth of 340%. Every VC in Silicon Valley is trying to get into this round. We're oversubscribed before we've even officially opened the fundraising process. That's impressive, I said sincerely. It is, Dad agreed, beaming at his eldest daughter. Victoria has a gift. Always has. Some people are born entrepreneurs, born leaders. Others are born helpers. Both are important, but they're not the same thing. I nodded, absorbing the familiar sting of being categorized as the lesser Morrison sibling. Can I ask one more question before the formal meeting starts? Make it quick, Victoria said, glancing at her watch. A Cartier tank that had been Dad's gift when the company hit its first million in revenue. The series of funding that got you started 4 years ago. The $12 million that gave you runway to build the initial product and hire your first 20 employees. Where did that come from? Victoria frowned. That's a matter of public record, Maya. It was a consortium of angel investors and early-stage VCs. Why? Just curious about the cap table, I said. And the Series B funding 18 months ago. The additional $32 million that funded your expansion into the European market? What's your point? Derek asked, irritation creeping into his voice. No point, I assured him. Just trying to understand the full financial picture. You know, since I apparently can't conceptualize these numbers. The Series B was led by Benchmark Capital, Victoria said impatiently, with participation from our existing investors and several new institutional funds. Maya, this is basic company history. If you're going to sit in on board meetings, at least do the minimal research. I have, I said. One more question. The Series A and Series B funding, was all of that institutional money? Or were there any individual investors? Why does that matter? Dad asked. It doesn't, I said. I'm just curious who believed in Morrison Tech from the very beginning. Before it was the darling of Silicon Valley. When it was just Victoria's idea and a prototype. Victoria's expression softened slightly, apparently touched by what she perceived as my admiration for her journey. The very first money, the seed round before we even had the Series A, that came from a private investment group. Meridian Strategic Ventures. They committed $2 million when we were nothing but a pitch deck and a dream. That seed money let us build the MVP that attracted the Series A investors. Meridian Strategic Ventures, I repeated. They sound important. They were crucial, Victoria admitted. They've been quiet partners ever since, very hands-off, which is what I wanted. They've participated in every funding round since then, including putting $50 million into the Series B. They're our largest single shareholder actually, though they've never asked for a board seat or tried to interfere with operations. $50 million, I said. That's serious money. That's what serious investors do, Derek said pointedly. They write big checks. Not everyone can play in that league. No, I agreed. Not everyone can. My phone vibrated again. And again. I pulled it out of my pocket, glancing at the screen. 3 messages from my firm, each marked urgent. I stood up, smoothing my simple black dress. Off the rack from Target, not that anyone in this room would know the difference between that and designer. Where are you going? Victoria asked. The meeting's about to start. I need to make a phone call, I said. It'll just take a minute. Maya, we're about to begin, Dad protested. I understand. This won't take long. I walked out of the conference room, their annoyed expressions following me into the hallway. The Morrison Tech Solutions offices occupied the entire 20th floor of a downtown high-rise, all glass and chrome and aggressive modernity. I found a quiet corner near the windows overlooking the city and opened my phone. The messages were from Catherine Wu, the managing partner at Meridian Strategic Ventures. My managing partner, technically, since I'd founded the firm 9 years ago with the trust fund money my maternal grandmother had left me. The only Morrison who'd ever believed I was capable of more than charity work. Catherine, board meeting today? How's it going? Catherine, quarterly reports show Morrison Tech at target. Series C timeline? Catherine, call me when you're free. Portfolio review scheduled for tomorrow. I smiled, typed a quick response. Meeting going exactly as expected. Need to execute option 7 from the contingency folder. Her reply came in seconds. Option 7? Are you sure? That's the nuclear option. I'm sure, I typed. Initiate withdrawal protocols. I want everything liquidated by end of business today. Maya, that's $94 million across all rounds. This will collapse their Series C negotiations. Are you absolutely certain? I looked back through the glass walls of the conference room where Victoria was holding court, Dad hanging on her every word, Derek nodding along like a bobblehead. None of them had any idea that the quiet sister in the back row was the reason their company existed at all. Absolutely certain, I replied. Full withdrawal. Sell all equity positions. Notify their CFO and board immediately per the shareholder agreement. And Catherine? Make sure the notification clearly identifies Meridian Strategic Ventures as my personal investment vehicle. No more anonymity. Understood. Executing now. This is going to be spectacular. That's the idea. I pocketed my phone and walked back into the conference room. Victoria was in the middle of her presentation, clicking through a PowerPoint deck showing projected revenue growth and market penetration strategies. Sorry for the interruption, I said, taking my seat. It's fine, Victoria said, though her tone suggested it wasn't. As I was saying, our path to a $300 million valuation is clear. We have product market fit, we have scalable technology, and we have the team to execute. The Series C funding will accelerate our timeline by 18 months and position us for a potential IPO or strategic acquisition by 2027. Ambitious, one of the board members commented. Realistic, Victoria corrected. We have commitments from Tier 1 VCs who see what we see, that Morrison Tech is going to dominate the enterprise software space. My phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. Victoria paused mid-sentence. Maya, if you need to step out again. No, I'm good, I said, silencing my phone. But around the table, I noticed several other board members pulling out their phones as well, their expressions shifting from attentive to confused to alarmed. The CFO, Martin Chen, stood abruptly. Excuse me, I need to. His phone was ringing now, the ringtone cutting through Victoria's presentation. I'm sorry, I have to take this. He stepped away from the table, speaking in urgent, hushed tones. Victoria's presentation faltered. As I was saying, the market opportunity. Another board member's phone rang. Then another. What the hell is going on? Derek demanded. Martin Chen came back into the room, his face ashen. Victoria, we need to talk. No. In private. We're in the middle of a board meeting, Victoria said. Now. Martin repeated, and something in his voice made Victoria set down her presentation clicker and follow him out of the room. Dad followed immediately, leaving Derek and me and the increasingly agitated board members in uncomfortable silence. Through the glass walls, I could see Martin showing Victoria something on his tablet. I watched as her expression went from annoyed to confused to horrified. Dad was reading over her shoulder, his face turning a concerning shade of red. They rushed back into the room. Everyone, we need to pause the meeting, Victoria announced, her voice tight. There's been some kind of mistake with our cap table. Our largest investor, Meridian Strategic Ventures, their lawyers just sent notice that they're executing an immediate withdrawal of all invested capital. They can't do that, Derek said. Investment contracts don't work that way. They can if they're structured as convertible notes with withdrawal provisions, Martin said grimly. Which apparently these were. Every single round. The seed, the Series A, the Series B, Meridian maintained withdrawal rights that we agreed to in exchange for favorable valuation terms. How much money are we talking about? One of the board members asked. $94 million, Martin said. 2 million seed, 12 million Series A, 30 million Series A follow-on, and 50 million Series B. With contractual interest, it's actually 96.3 million. The room erupted in shocked exclamations. Victoria held up her hand for silence. This has to be a mistake. Meridian has been a silent partner for 4 years. They've never interfered, never made demands. Why would they suddenly withdraw everything? According to the notice, Martin said, reading from his tablet, the withdrawal is being executed at the discretion of the fund's founder and managing partner. It's all completely legal under the shareholder agreement we signed. Who's the founder? Dad demanded. Get them on the phone. This is insane. You don't just pull $94 million out of a functioning company without warning. The notice identifies the founder, Martin said slowly, but there must be some mistake. Who is it? Victoria demanded. Martin looked at me. So did Victoria. And Dad. And Derek. And every single board member in the room. The notice says Meridian Strategic Ventures was founded and is wholly owned by Maya Morrison, Martin said. It says she's the sole decision-maker for all investment activities and portfolio management. The silence that followed was absolute. That's impossible, Victoria said finally. Maya works at a nonprofit. She doesn't have that kind of money. According to the corporate filings, Martin continued, pulling up documents on his tablet, Meridian Strategic Ventures was established 9 years ago with initial capital of $25 million. It's since grown to a portfolio value of approximately $380 million across various technology investments. Morrison Tech Solutions represents their largest single investment and their longest-held position. Dad was shaking his head. No, this is a mistake. Someone with the same name. Maya, tell them this is a mistake. I picked up my phone, which was still buzzing with notifications. It's not a mistake, Dad. What? Victoria's voice came out as barely more than a whisper. Meridian Strategic Ventures is my firm, I said calmly. I founded it 9 years ago with the inheritance Grandma Morrison left me, the trust fund she set up that nobody in the family except the estate lawyers knew about. $25 million that she'd accumulated over her lifetime, left specifically to me because she said I was the only Morrison who understood the value of quiet competence. That's... Derek started, then stopped, unable to finish the sentence. 6 years ago, I continued, Victoria came to me specifically, though she doesn't remember it that way, asking if I knew any investors who might be interested in her startup idea. I looked at her business plan, ran the numbers, and believed in the concept. So I invested $2 million as seed funding through Meridian. I kept the ownership structure private because I knew if Victoria found out her little sister was her primary investor, she'd reject the money. You're lying, Victoria said, but there was no conviction in her voice. When the Series A came around, I continued, I personally recruited the other investors, made the introductions, and led the round with $12 million of my own capital. The VCs whose names are on the cap table? They came in because I convinced them to. Same with the Series B. I put in $50 million and brought Benchmark to the table. Every major strategic decision, every important hire, every expansion plan, I've been reviewing and approving them for 4 years through my board observer rights. Martin was scrolling through documents frantically. He's right. The shareholder agreements all give Meridian final approval rights on major decisions. I thought it was a standard VC protective provision, but these are unusually strong. Meridian, Maya, could have blocked any decision we've made. Why? Victoria asked, and for the first time she sounded vulnerable rather than angry. If this is true, why stay silent? Why let us think that I was the failure? I finished. That I was the Morrison who couldn't keep up? Because I wanted to see if you could succeed on merit alone. I believed in your technology, Victoria. I genuinely did, and I still do. The product is revolutionary. But I wanted to know if you could build a company based on the quality of your work, not on family connections or pity investments. And could I? Victoria asked. You could, I confirmed. You're genuinely brilliant at product development and strategy. Morrison Tech succeeds because you're talented, not because of me. But here's the problem. You're terrible at recognizing the contributions of people you've decided aren't worthy of your respect. Dad found his voice. Maya, sweetheart, if there's been some miscommunication. There's been no miscommunication, I said. For 4 years I've sat in these meetings and listened to you all explain why I couldn't understand basic business concepts. I've watched you patronize me, dismiss me, and treat my questions like adorable attempts at participation. Today Victoria told me this meeting was for serious investors only. Derek asked if I even knew what a Series C funding round was. Dad said I couldn't conceptualize numbers in the millions. We didn't mean, Derek started. You meant exactly what you said, I interrupted. And that's fine. People reveal who they are when they think there are no consequences. But here's the thing about being a silent partner. You get to stay silent until you choose not to. Victoria's phone rang. She answered it automatically, listened for a moment, then said, "Yes, I understand. Thank you for letting me know." She hung up and looked at me. That was Sequoia. They're withdrawing their interest in the Series C. Apparently, word has already spread that our primary investor is pulling out. They're concerned about company stability. Andreessen Horowitz just emailed, Martin said, checking his inbox. Same thing. They want to pause discussions until the situation with Meridian is resolved. The notifications kept coming. One by one, the VCs who'd been fighting for a piece of Morrison Tech Series C were backing away, spooked by the sudden capital withdrawal and the uncertainty it created. "Maya, please," Victoria said, and I'd never heard my sister beg before. "Don't do this. The company needs that capital. Without the Series C, we'll have to scale back operations. We might have to lay people off. Everything we've built. Everything I funded," I corrected gently. Victoria, $94 million of the money that built Morrison Tech came from me. The other investors contributed $22 million combined. You've been running a company that was 76% funded by your little sister, the one you thought couldn't understand board meetings. What do you want? Derek asked bluntly. You want us to apologize? You want recognition? A board seat? Name your price. I don't want anything from Morrison Tech, I said. The company will be fine. You have strong revenue, a solid product, and legitimate market demand. You'll find new investors eventually, though probably at a lower valuation once word spreads that your cap table was built on convertible notes with withdrawal provisions. Future VCs will be more cautious. Then why are you doing this? Dad demanded. Because, I said, standing and gathering my things, I spent 28 years being the Morrison who didn't matter. The one who was good enough to invite to meetings but not good enough to be taken seriously. I built a $380 million investment portfolio, became the primary funder of your flagship company, and you still looked at me and saw someone who couldn't conceptualize large numbers. We didn't know, Victoria said. You didn't ask, I countered. Not once in 4 years did any of you wonder where Meridian Strategic Ventures came from, who was behind it, or why they were so invested in your success. You just took the money and assumed you'd earned it through your own brilliance alone. My phone buzzed with a message from Catherine. All equity positions sold. Funds transferred. Morrison Tech shares purchased by Holding Consortium. They'll be more hands-on investors than you were. Good luck to them. The equity has been sold, I announced. Your new primary investors are a consortium that specializes in operational turnarounds. They'll want board seats, voting rights, and regular operational reviews. No more silent partnership. Maya, please, Dad said. You're family. We can work this out. I am family, I agreed. Which is why I invested in the first place and why I stayed invested even when I could have liquidated years ago at a significant profit. But family respect goes both ways, Dad. You don't get to treat someone like they're intellectually and financially inferior for 4 years and then claim family loyalty when the bill comes due. I walked toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Victoria, you really do have a great product. Morrison Tech will probably survive this and maybe even thrive. But it won't be with my money anymore, and it won't be with my network. Good luck with the new investors. Wait, Victoria said. The Series C. If we don't get the funding, you'll have to bootstrap, I said. Slow down expansion, focus on profitability, prove you can build something sustainable without constantly raising venture capital. Ironically, that's probably the best thing that could happen to the company long term. You've been so focused on the next funding round that you've neglected the fundamentals. And your other investments? Martin asked. The $380 million portfolio. What happens to that? Continues as before, I said. I have stakes in 17 companies, none of which treat me like I can't read a balance sheet. Morrison Tech was personal, so Morrison Tech gets sold. The rest of my portfolio is performing exactly as projected. Derek was still processing. You're really a venture capitalist. I really am, I confirmed. One of the more successful ones in the region actually, though I prefer to stay out of the spotlight. The nonprofit work I do? I fund that personally. I contribute about $4 million a year to homeless services, food security programs and education initiatives. The $45,000 salary I take from the nonprofit is because I genuinely enjoy the work, not because I need the money. $4 million, Dad repeated faintly. Give or take, I said. Depends on the year and which programs need the most support. Grandma Morrison taught me that wealth means nothing if you don't use it to make the world better. She also taught me that people will reveal their true character when they think you're powerless. Both lessons have served me well. Victoria's phone rang again. She looked at it, then at me. It's our bank. They probably want to discuss the sudden change in our financial position. You should answer that, I advised. And Victoria? For the record, I never doubted your ability to succeed. I just wish you'd believed I could succeed too. I left the conference room and walked to the elevators. Behind me, I could hear raised voices, frantic phone calls, the sound of a company entering crisis mode. Part of me felt guilty. 90 employees at Morrison Tech would be affected by this decision, people who'd done nothing wrong except work for a company with founders who couldn't see past their own assumptions. But I'd structured the withdrawal carefully. The company had enough runway to survive for 18 months without the Series C, long enough to either find new investors or become profitable organically. No one would lose their jobs immediately. The new investors I'd sold to were tough but fair. They'd push Victoria and Derek to be better operators, which was exactly what the company needed. My phone rang as I reached the lobby. Catherine Wu's name appeared on the screen. It's done, she said when I answered. Morrison Tech shares sold, funds transferred to your main investment account. The tech blogs are already picking up the story. Major VC firm executes unprecedented withdrawal from promising startup. By tomorrow morning, every investor in the valley will know what happened. Good, I said. Let them know. Silent money is powerful, but sometimes public money sends a better message. The consortium that bought your position wants to meet with you, Catherine continued. They're impressed by your ability to identify and nurture early-stage companies. They want to know if you're interested in co-investing on future deals. I'll think about it, I said. Right now I need a vacation. Maybe somewhere quiet where no one knows what a Series C funding round is. Catherine laughed. You earned it. Call me when you're back. We have 3 new pitch decks to review and one of them looks very promising. A biotech startup working on accelerated vaccine development. Send me the details, I said. I'll look at them from the beach. I hung up and walked out into the afternoon sunshine. My 7-year-old Honda was parked in the garage, paid off and reliable. I could have bought any car I wanted, could have moved to a penthouse downtown, could have worn designer clothes and flashed wealth like a badge. But Grandma Morrison had taught me that real power doesn't announce itself. Real power works quietly, invests wisely, and only reveals itself when revelation serves a purpose. Today's purpose had been served. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. We need to talk. Please. I typed back, we just did. Good luck with everything. Another text, this time from Dad. Maya, I'm so sorry. I never realized. Can we have dinner this week? I want to understand. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, maybe in a few months. I need some distance right now. But Dad? You raised a daughter who built a successful company and a daughter who built a successful investment firm. You should be proud of both of us. His response came quickly. I am. I always was. I just didn't show it the right way. Oh, I replied. You didn't. But it's not too late to start. I put my phone in my pocket and drove out of the parking garage, leaving behind the gleaming high-rise and the family drama and the boardroom where I'd spent 4 years being invisible. Tomorrow, the business publications would run stories about the mysterious investor who'd torpedoed Morrison Tech Series C. Industry analysts would debate my motivations, question my business judgment, wonder if I'd made a mistake walking away from a potentially lucrative investment. But tonight I was just Maya Morrison, venture capitalist philanthropist, and the woman who'd finally stopped apologizing for taking up space. I turned on the radio and drove toward the sunset, already planning my next investment. Because that's what serious investors do. We recognize opportunity, we deploy capital strategically, and we don't waste time trying to convince people we're worth listening to. We just act and let the results speak for themselves.